Um, but yeah, today I'm basically going to be talking about the first drum and bass track that I ever put out, called Hysteria. Um, and in here we got the project file. I don't. My mic is glitching. My mic is glitching. Is it like? Does it sound like it's like clipping and stuttering? Because I didn't know. I did zero audio testing prior to getting on here. What I think is happening here, just my sample rate a little bit too high. But we will be troubleshooting this throughout the video. Yeah, right. So, basically, what we got here is my Ableton project. Uh, uh, if anything sounds weird, or if the volume needs to be turned up, just let me know. I'm doing this stuff all on the fly. I have no monitoring to really hear myself or anything else that's going on here. So we're gonna drop this down here, and you can see my chaotic mind in all of its glory. And I'm basically gonna try to take this track by track and kind of talk about what was going on in my head when I tried to make this. The way that this track came together was very interesting as I started making it. You know, once the melody came together, I pretty much knew where I wanted to take the track from beginning to end. And it took me maybe like 13 hours, but I did this all 13 hours straight from mixing to mastering. And then I think it took me a few weeks after that to upload it. But as you can see, I got a lot of different stuff going on here. I got some samples, I got some MIDI stuff. But yeah, the way that this track started, I'm curious if I'm curious how this is gonna work. Sorry, just give me one moment here while I try to troubleshoot this stuff. Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, I should just be able to press play here and you'll start hearing it. So I'm going to start with this sample here. And this sample was the backbone for the entire track. I literally grabbed this sample off Splice. I didn't do a lot to it in terms of like chopping it up. But that's not good. You can see like I literally didn't crossfade them. There's a lot of clicking in this track. It's a lot going on. But the way that I process this, I just have an EQ on it here. I really barely touched any of the EQ here in the mids. And I boosted a little bit of the upper mids here to get a little bit of the upper harmonics. But inside that, I have this in a bus. And in that bus, I have some reverb, just a hall reverb. It's not really long, it's a little short. It's about 50% wet, dry. And then I boosted around 12K. And cut a little bit too. I didn't really touch any of the lows. I wanted the reverb to be bright, and I wanted it to cut through the mix. And then I have this, which is just a sidechain to what I believe will be the kick of the track. And also in this bus, I have this rain stick as like a cool little ambiance. You can see I didn't even EQ it, just added some reverb. Supermassive, classic. And I did the same thing here. I didn't touch any of the lows, boosted the highs a bunch around 12K, and just cut just a little bit around 20K. After I heard this, I'm gonna loop. I'm gonna loop this section. So after I heard that, I pretty much knew in my head how I wanted the drums to go. So I didn't add any of these drums yet. I believe the next thing I added was this drone, which is a Ableton pad, and you can see I have some automation here, going right to left throughout the entire thing. I'm pretty sure I just clicked in here randomly to kind of give it like a more natural movement. And on this synth, I cut a lot of the low out, boosted a little bit more of the high mids, added some reverb. I use this default preset a lot. It's just a pretty nice plugin, Reverb from Waves. And then some extra supermassive for some depth. This is what it sounded like on its own. And then I cut the lows out of it. And the Valhalla really set it off. So, in addition to... Okay, wow, there's a lot going on here. So in addition to panning on my own by hand, I also added an auto pan on it, probably to give it like a little wobbly effect. And then I EQ'd it again. I took out some of the highs after the reverb. Whatever was happening in this reverb, I guess was causing a huge spike here, and I didn't want that, so I just EQ'd it out. And then sidechained it. And then it looks like I added the utility again, doing more left to right. I don't know what's going on with that. That's crazy. So yeah. What else do we got going on here? We got a little bit more synths. I don't know what this is, but it's not making any sound. Oh. Okay, so I guess because the MIDI note here, it didn't trigger here on this first note. But this is essentially a lower pad. This is cool. It kind of gives it like this mysterious kind of sound. Huh. That's really neat. But on that pad, I just added some delay here. Eighth notes, dotted, and then I just sidechained it. What are these? This is another synth. This is one of my own synth patches. really nice on the high end. Really makes really makes the synth jump out of the speakers. And basically what this is just a detuned little wavetable. I didn't add a lot. I added some distortion, some multi-band compression, some ping pong delay for depth. Talking patches? Hell yeah. I'm talking my own custom patches. Right now I'm doing a breakdown of my track Hysteria that is a year old today. So I'm just going through the breakdown of how I made it, talking about the production and the engineering behind it, some of the patches and stuff that I did. But this patch is this little guy here, just doing some high-end ear candy. But it's really nice, really simple. Didn't do a lot to it, didn't EQ it much. As you can see, I literally didn't do any EQ on it. Really, really nice on the high end. I think that's all in this little section. And then this is where I initially brought in the drums. So for the drums here, you can see my bus is a little weird. But basically what I got going on here I took this basic kick pattern somewhere. I don't even know where the kick is. Oh, it's down here. So I just took this kick drum and the snare, I believe, off the rip, and gave it like this very simple drum and bass pattern. On the kick, I didn't do much. I just used a transient shaper, I guess, to lower the attack and try to make it longer, make it more full, I suppose. And then I just EQ'd it a little bit. I cut a little bit of the mids out. I think this was because of the bass. I was using a straight sine wave, and I really wanted the sub to be like the driving force of the low end, so I cut a lot of the lows out here. Did a little bit of ducking in the low or the high lows here, the low mids, to get rid of some of that mud and rumble. Like you can see, it was really sticking out there. So I just used dynamic EQ to like push it back down a little bit, not too much, like less than 3 dB. And I did the same thing here because you can see that this is peaking in this frequency range, so I just used the same dynamic EQ and just knocked it down a little bit. And then to get the kick to stand out more in the mix, I boosted the upper mids to kind of get this little little clicky sound, and I rolled off some of the highs here too. The snare is just the snare. I didn't do much to this either. I did some transient shaping with Smack Attack. The EQ just boosted. I boosted a lot of it, from 10K up. Didn't cut at all. And then once I had the pattern, I was like, okay, let's get some tops going in here. This was nice. I love the I just love the bouncing and syncopation in this like top stem here. And like bongos and stuff like that. Like I really like that type of sound in drum and bass. It adds like a nice, like a jungle feel, you know. Like I'm more into like liquid drum and bass and jungle, so I try to implement a lot of like jungle sounding stuff into my drum and bass tracks. Before I go any further, I know I've been doing this for like 15 minutes or so. I just want to make sure that the volume is good. Could you guys hear me okay? Is the audio from Ableton coming through clearly? Is anything sound, painful? Just let me know. Sounds weird. Do I sound weird? Or does the music sound weird? Like I'm in a bottle. I sound like a Daft Punk project. Okay, this can be resolved very easily. Um, I didn't want to put my headphones on, but I'm gonna throw my headphones on for you. I basically have everything coming out of my monitors right now, and I'm using NVIDIA Broadcast to do noise canceling, but I think the noise canceling is causing issues. Nonetheless, we. Okay, this probably sounds better now, right? Or do I still sound like I'm coming through a bottle? Yeah. Yeah, it sounds good. Or yeah, I sound like I'm in a bottle. Okay, better now. All right, nice. All right, sorry for that. So let's move on here. I was talking about this top percussion loop here. It's really, really nice here. So I didn't do much to it. I took the lows out of it, and this was really sharp. So I just added the dynamic EQ to kind of knock it down a little bit. And then let's talk about some more of the tops here. I just added this hi hat. This was a trap stem, and I believe I just changed it to match the BPM, and it kind of worked. But you can hear this is really wet and like really sharp, and I kind of wanted it to have some depth, so I just added reverb to it, threw it in the mix. Pretty big, but the wet dry is not that much. Let's throw the whole drums here. And then this break, the amen break. The amen break, I love that. I do a lot. I try to do a lot of breaks, stuff like that, as fills. And you can see I kind of got a couple going on here. But not a lot going on in terms of processing. It looks like I did some automation later on. But for the most part, I just rolled off most of it. Wow. Yeah, so I rolled a lot of that off. I added some distortion to it. Wow. What is that? We're going to have a discussion about that later. But yeah, on this drum break, I wanted it to sound really crunchy, really, really crunchy. So I literally just threw distortion on it and then sidechained it to the kick. But yeah, that's pretty much in this section. That's all that's really going on. It's just like the intro. It really picks up around here. So not a whole lot going on in this particular section. This is kind of just like the main groove. That delay is on this snare here. So it's just a dub snare. Just a typical dub snare. But I just took this because I felt like it needed some depth. And added like a vocal swell. I actually used this sample a lot in a lot of my tracks. It's just like a really nice vocal swell, and I kind of sometimes I'll use it as a riser. Sometimes I'll use it as just like a way to fill out space. But the way I process this gets a little nuts. So, I have it automated here to fade out. throughout the track. EQ, I rolled off a lot of the lows. I would have EQ'd this differently now, but back then I just used dynamic EQ to just kind of cut out some of the stuff to tuck it in a little bit more. But I did the same thing. I added some saturation on a soft clipper. And then there were some peaks, as you can see here. There were some volume inconsistencies, so I threw a compressor on it. It's not really doing too much compression. Okay, it's actually doing a lot of compression. It's taking around 7 dB off, but that's fine. I wanted it to be a little more consistent throughout. It's not like it's like an actual vocal take. And then I threw Supermassive on it. I used Supermassive a lot in this project. I don't know what was going on, but I think this is when I first got it, so I just wanted to use it a lot. But you can hear, like, it's not really that special. But with the delay on it and the reverb, it gets really big, so I liked that a lot. And then I don't think I automated the width here, but I did take it down a little bit because I think Valhalla made it too wide. Yeah, so it was a little too much on the sides. I wanted it a little bit more in the center. So I narrowed the stereo field, but then I added auto pan to it to give it some left and right movement, which is funny, and then some sidechain compression. But you can see the sidechain's like really pumping. It's taken almost 18 dB down, and it's clicking. You can clearly hear the click. That's one of my biggest pet peeves with Pro C, is the clicking on the sidechain. But you know, in context, I don't think it's really something that is noticeable in context. But yeah. So this is where the bass comes in. And the bass is somewhere. Basses. So the bass is just Serum. Not a lot going on here. It's literally just a sine wave coming out. But I did do a little bit of processing here. It looks like I only have a multi-band compressor and some EQ on it, which is really nice. It's like a really nice way to fill out the low end. And you can, the compressor's not even picking it up, so. Okay, apparently there's some automation going on here too. Okay, there is some automation, but I'm not sure what's happening there. At some point, the EQ is opening up, which is kind of cool. And giving the sub like this kind of like a slide effect, which is pretty cool. And the way that I processed this sub, I threw this EQ on it and I boosted the lows pretty heavily, around 30K. I'm sorry, just 30 hertz. And I threw an exciter on it to kind of make the mids a little bit more crispy. And it looks like I did the highs a lot. I typically wouldn't do this now, but I did back then and it kind of worked. But then some soft clip saturation. It's not really doing too much, and some sidechain. So nothing really different in this section either. I added some snare rolls, some real snare rolls here in the drums to give it a more live feel. I did it throughout this entire section, but this is the first part I'm touching bass on them. And I added some more tops. Oh, there's some nice tops going on here. Basically, all the tops I did the same thing. Smack attack, which is a transient shaper, some reverb, and a sidechain. But I want to talk about this bass. So this is a patch that I made. And I don't know if I have these automated. I might. Awesome. So yeah, I have this bass. I have it wobbling pretty much, and what I did here was I took this this LFO and I assigned it to the cutoff here, so it kind of gives it that wobble. You can see it. It's giving that wobble effect. It looks like this LFO is changing the wavetable here. Okay, there's a lot going on here. So I have this LFO triggering a lot of stuff. Here on this distortion, there's no reverb here. I have this LFO. I'm not sure exactly what this is doing or where it's working. Doesn't seem to be assigned anything, but it's not even moving. Maybe later on it might be doing something. And then here I just have like a rising LFO. Here I'm changing this wavetable, and then I have it opening up the EQ here a lot to give the bass some movement. But I boosted the subs pretty hard here, cut out what looks to be the mids. And then on top of that, I boosted the gain because I felt like in context to what was going on, it was just too quiet. And I narrowed the width a little bit because it was too wide. I like stereo basses, but in context to everything that was going on, especially with these hi-hats and like a lot of the top stuff, I didn't want the sides to be too busy. So I just narrowed it a little bit. And you can see like it's clipping hard. But I think it adds like a nice little character to the bass. And then I rounded off some of the sub here, even though I boosted it in the patch to mix it in better. Took a little bit, around 100 off. Boosted some of this stuff, which is interesting. And then ducking some of the upper mids. And then just a small little shelf. Actually, it might not be small. Yeah, like 3 dB. on the highs. Some excitement in the highs as well. Some clipping, some soft saturation, and sidechain. But I think this bass was like the driving force of most of the track. Especially when it gets to this part here, I have some automation on the LFO to change the rate that it's working at. This 116. So that's really cool. I basically had this knob. I believe this is what's changing the LFO rate on this LFO. And I had it assigned to my MIDI controller, and I was able to actually like change it with the knob on my controller. So I was just like playing around with it. And once I dropped it down to a half instead of 1/8 to do this, I was like, wait a minute. And I dropped everything out there because I wanted that to be the accent. I felt like it was like a really cool switch up in the bass pattern. And then in those spaces, I just had the bass playing, and I was like, it sounds kind of empty. Like, what can I do to spice it up? So I was looking through my patches, and I couldn't find anything that I liked, so I made this patch. I called it Code Red because it kind of sounds like I'm a big gamer, so if you play a lot of games or a lot of sci-fi stuff, like, it sounds like a terminal noise that would be made on like a starship or something. So I called it Code Red Glitch. But basically it's just this shape wavetable. Not a lot going on here. I have this LFO assigned to this EQ that's not even turned on. Literally crazy amounts of distortion, some saturation, or some multiband compression. And then I added this EQ because it sounded really thin. I think this is not even doing anything. Yeah, it sounded weird. So I cut a lot of this stuff down here. Or I didn't really cut it. I just lowered the volume and then boosted a little bit more of the lower frequencies. So as you can see when this is playing, I wanted this to be most of it. So I just I tried to boost this and then lower all this, just so it kind of tucks itself in the mix. I played this out, and you can see like the patterns are different every time. I legitimately play this out on my keyboard, just because I don't know, I felt like looping it was going to be weird. The way that it played itself out was just weird. So I tried to give it a weird rhythm every time, and I like it because in the context of everything else, it kind of disappears. But when there's nothing playing, it stands out a lot. There's a nice little centerpiece in the center of the mix. But aside from that, that's pretty much the entire first half of the track. And then So then it kind of drops into this breakdown. It's just really stripped back. I like that I faded it out with this dub snare. I faded out the bass here. You can hear it's kind of... with the vocal atmospheric swell, fading it out. And this is just a sample. This is just like a synth one shot. Not a lot going on here, just some EQ. Rolled off a lot of the lows just because they weren't really there. Oh yeah, there was a huge spike here. I didn't want that. It was getting in the way of a lot of the sub. So I just EQ'd it out. Added reverb, huge reverb, H delay, classic boosting a lot of the highs here. Sidechain compression, and then I took the entire volume down with an automation. I only use this stem once in the entire track. That's very interesting. But basically this breakdown is just a breakdown. This little synth lead that's going on here is one of my own patches. I wanted it to sound like a violin. I wanted to have some like orchestral instruments going on, but I didn't have any plugins for that. So I made a violin. I tried to make a violin, and I just used these wavetables here. I had this going really fast, giving it some movement. I don't know what this is automating. Yeah, it doesn't look like this is doing anything here, but you can see there's just some distortion on here. I don't have the distortion turned on. Multi-band compression, some reverb, some EQ, and a filter. This is where it's doing that. I don't know. I might have drawn this in, just for I don't know, for movement's sake. But the main thing with this synth, I boosted the fundamentals, and some of the highs, cut the lows. Same here. I just cut all the lows out, didn't even EQ it. And then I have some auto pan for movement to give it more of a natural feel, and some sidechain compression. But not a lot going on here. I have this drone going pretty much through the whole track. This violin, these top synths. And this is just a riser. So I don't think initially this BPM was 150 on this riser, but when I stretched it to 175, it started doing like this pulsing sound. And I thought that was really cool in this build-up. It kind of adds some weight. So I kept that. I really liked that. And then the sub comes back in, did a little crash. Crash isn't even on. Yeah, it was too abrasive, so I just didn't even use it. Get rid of that. back half of this track is where things really start to get fun. Yeah. So I don't really know. I opened up with the dub snare. There's this track by this guy named Etherwood, who is a drum and bass producer. And he has this track called Lullerin, I believe is the name. And after I heard that song, the song kind of is similar to this in structure, where it's nice and liquid drum and bass in the beginning, and on the back half, it just kind of opens up into like this dark, heavy, crunchy kind of drum and bass track. And I was like, wow, it would be really cool to do something like that in my own track. So I tried to emulate that myself. And it started with this synth here. I was like, I need something that is big and heavy, and kind of like blows everything out of proportion. So I didn't really know what I was looking. I didn't know what I was looking for, but like I knew what it sounded like. So I was like, I will just try and sound design this. So I don't even know how I did this, to be honest. So it's a slow rising. You can see that this EQ is opening based on this LFO. And then it's also changing this wave table, so you can see it's moving. And I have it super, I think I have this like 2 octaves below C standard. And then I just like panned it left to right to left to give it some movement. And this is where it started getting heavy, so I compressed the hell out of it. Sign shaper, added a ton of drive here. You can see it gets a little crunchy, and I added a huge reverb on it. Give it a lot of space. What do we got going on with this? It doesn't look like this is doing much. And then I did some crazy EQ here. So basically all these EQs are just cutting out notches and peaks to kind of flatten it out. And then here I added a boost to kind of level it. And you can see it's actually pretty nice. It fit in right where I wanted it to. In the mids, not a lot of lows, because I have two basses going here for some reason. And this is still pretty full in the low. So I want to look at the basses here, because I don't really know what's happening or the difference between these two basses. I called this one throat goat. Okay, so basically this is just this one's a mid bass and this one has a sub in it, but I think they're the same exact patches. Let's take a look here. So this is my patch, throat goat. Yeah, so they are a little bit different. So this one is just like I said, this is the mid bass. This one's the one that should be playing. And it's basically just playing in the mids. As you can see, these I think are literally the same exact patches. What's actually happening here? This one might be an octave up. This one's cut a little bit higher. but you can see they're literally processed the exact same. And it was pretty much just to add a little bit more weight in the mid-range. Lazy Boy Loops, hello, welcome. We're just getting into the good stuff here. So these two basses combined with this big heavy foghorn, which apparently would be considered a foghorn. So that pretty much like opened up the entire back end for me. And I knew that the back needed to be heavy and really hard. So I did some stuff in the master that I'm going to talk about once I'm done talking about all the mixed stuff here to kind of add a little bit more weight. But pretty much once I heard the basses leading in, I knew how I wanted everything else to play out. I think this is a new... Yeah, so I took these breaks, the ones that I chopped up, and I added the whole thing. On top of what I had going on here. I chopped up a lot of the perks from here, so you can see they're all pretty static here. And then in this part, I chopped them up a lot. Added some new rhythm and groove to it. Still use the same... I used the live snare from here. And I believe I just pitched them. What is going on here? No, this is just a totally different... I took a totally different break, took the snares from that break, and then used them as snare rolls. Yeah, I think it was this. Something in here that I ended up chopping up and using it as a fill. But again, this vocal swell, some of these ear candy synths. And this, I kept the violin going through the entire back. And here I cut the keys out. And like, so there's a lot of synth work going on here. A lot of stuff happening at weird spots. Like, I love this lore synth just like happening in the background. So this mixed with like this synth mixed with this heavy drop synth, like they sit together on top of each other so nicely. And like I didn't anticipate that happening in the beginning, but once I layered them, like I don't know, it sat together super nice. But yeah, the basses that happened here, nothing really too exciting. Again, I just have that LFO change on them. Not a lot of automation happening on any of this stuff here. That Code Red synth, you'd get so lost. Yeah, I did get lost in this track for quite a while. But it was a nice kind of lost, I guess. Like I said in the beginning of the video, like I knew right from the beginning how I wanted this track to play out. And the way that it kind of just like built upon different elements was interesting and unexpected. I think that's what I love so much about this track. Like every time I added a new element, I was able to find another way to add on top of that. And it kept going. And there's not a lot of tracks here, 32 tracks in total, but I feel like I got everything into it that I wanted to get into it without making it too busy. or distracting, or muddy. This whole section I talked over to. Imagine having 32 tracks. I have projects with over 100 tracks. But the way that they're processed, like, I'm not gonna lie to you, this is 32 tracks. I did the master inside the track, and I had to drop my sample rate pretty low to get it to play without clicking and popping. But I've worked on a track with 100 stems where I wasn't even using 30% of my computer. So routing is very important. I didn't do a lot of different routing things here. But keys, drums, bass, vinyl, dot wave. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the one thing that I'm noticing as I progressed a little bit out of lo-fi beats and like hip hop beats in general, you can still get away with having very little tracks. Like I have vinyl VST is easier. Yeah, RC20 is very nice. In my lo-fi beats, I stopped using vinyl and I started using found sounds like Foley and like actual like outside noises. I felt like it was a little more natural than vinyl, especially when I use the J37 tape emulator. I didn't use it in this one, but I use it now. So when I would add the tape emulator, it would add noise on its own that wasn't necessarily tape saturation. So the noise would build up a lot, and I just didn't like how noisy it sounded for wanting to have like a cleaner kind of track. But yeah, vinyl's good. Arturia's weird vinyl VST. I didn't even know that they had a vinyl VST. 3 tracks tops. Yeah, you guys are definitely lo-fi producers. I have a lo-fi beat coming out on my Alias at the end of this month, and it's literally one track. It's literally the sample and the drums. Tape ML lo-fi. Oh, I did know about that. They gave it away for free, but it's $100. The vinyl sound is building with the sound you attach. Interesting. But I do like with RC20 that you could duck the vinyl noise and any of the noise. So it's a very useful feature. Yeah. So I wanted this part to be heavier. But I didn't want it to stay heavy. I just wanted it to have like a moment of darkness. Because the track this is when I knew that I wanted to call the track Hysteria, right? So it was super nice. It was super nice and calm. And then like it just turned like it dropped out completely in this section here. You could see like there's literally nothing. It's pretty bare in this section. So show us my lo-fi song. After this, I will 100% show you my most recent lo-fi song and my most recent chill hop song. I'll leak some stuff for you guys if you were interested in sticking around. I'll try to make this short because I wanted to upload this to YouTube. But I'm already at 50 minutes, so I'm going to have to figure out a way to chop this up into digestible bits. But so like you can see here, this is when I wanted to call the track Hysteria, because you can see it's nice and calm here, and it drops out to like next to nothing here. It's very bare bones, and then it like just turns up out of nowhere, and I was like, that is what Hysteria feels like to me. So like it's literally only for a short section where it kind of has like that dark tone to it. And then I brought the keys back in here. And it kind of mellows out a little bit more. Just the energy is a little bit different. I added these fills. Oh yeah, this is nice. I dropped out the drums, added these fills. So this was a first for me. I never had done something like this, but I saw it from some artists that I was very much into at the time, watching some of their production streams. They were just taking sounds as fills and reversing them and using them as like build-up fills. So it's like, how cool would it be to just drop everything out and just have like this cool little weird atmospheric build? And it's actually like clicking. I guess it's not. But yeah, I literally just took this it was like a vocal reverse, a reverse reverb, and I just EQ'd it, added some high-end excitement, and then clipped it a little bit, and threw some reverb on it. With everything else that was happening in this little section. Like the Code Red synth. And then I wanted to take it home strong. And I felt like if I just repeated everything that happened in here, it kind of, it was just too repetitive. So I figured I will just add like one more kind of lead to it. And I didn't really know how I wanted it to sound, so I was just like playing around on Serum. I ended up coming up with this patch. It's kind of like a fake Leslie. If you know what a Leslie is, it's kind of just like a fast panning sound. They used to, I believe it was like a Leslie, like a tape saturation or like a tape effect. And basically what it is just like a wobble. So I led into the section with it. And this LFO is just going super fast, opening the EQ. And I made it pretty wide, so this is kind of like a weird sub. It's a weird sign. It's got a little bit of a peak to it. And then a saw wave. And it's super short. It's literally just a pluck. With some multiband compression, some reverb, and some ping pong delay for depth. In the final export, I thought that these plucks were kind of quiet. I wish I turned them up a little bit, but sometimes you just gotta leave things how they are, and accept it. You know, this track came out miles ahead of what I would have expected it to end up being. So to have like a lead that was just a little bit too quiet in context to everything else, like, was a very minimal issue for me. And then there's this dub snare that. And yeah, it just played out. And honestly, wow. I put a lot of elbow grease into this one, like making sure when these dropped out, you know, certain things are peeking out, like the Leslie. And just like little things like the kicks. Like a lot of these like ghost kicks, I literally shortened it. I think some of them I guess I just shortened them and I lowered the volume, but I thought some of them I changed the tuning on them to give it a more human feel, but I didn't. But even in context, like you really can't even tell. And just like adding like the groove on these fills. And just like in context, everything came together so nicely. Man, that ringing is cracked. I really jacked it up. But yeah, I'm very happy with the way this track turned out. And I really couldn't wait to release it, especially for not having any electronic music out at the time. This was big. This was big for me. This really opened a lot of doors for me as an artist and a producer. But yeah, a lot of work. A lot of my favorite serum patches came from here. A lot of my drum and bass stuff came from here. So basically, what I did after I mixed all this stuff down, I threw it all into this mix bus, basically, and I added some excitement on the lows, the highs, and the mids. Actually, this isn't even doing anything. I don't think. It might be adding like the smallest amount of excitement, but it's really not doing much. And then on this, just a compressor. I think I used this. I wanted to use this for color, but it's actually compressing a lot. And then you can see I have the input. It's automated here. So I didn't crank it up too much more, but this is just the input. I don't know if this is supposed to be like minus 30 dB. I don't exactly know the interface for a lot of these compressors. But I wanted to crank it a little bit more in this back half. But whoa, when I cranked it up, a lot of it just sounded squashed and lifeless. So I just increased the gain a little bit. I just turned it up. I just turned the knobs up a little bit more, to be honest. It did a lot for the track. And then here, in this EQ, I added what is basically called like a smile curve. And for those who don't know what the smile curve is, the smile curve is basically just an EQ that does this. It's shaped like a smile. Because most consumer headphones, accentuate the low end and cut a lot of the highs out. So I don't know. I just wanted to boost the lows a little bit more and the highs, and I wanted to leave most of the mid untouched. Because a lot of the headphones focus in the mid range, and a lot of speakers focus on the mid range. So for the people who have like good stereo systems, like they will hear this clearly, and they will also hear the highs cut through a little bit more clearly. But I didn't do it with this type of EQ. I did it with the Pultec because it's a little bit cleaner, and I didn't really add a lot of low end. I literally added at 20 hertz. I guess this is like 2 dB. Didn't cut it at all. and then I really brought the highs out from 10K up. And this is just on the mix bus. And then in the master, I didn't want to touch the master too much because a lot of the work was done in the mix. And it was clean, so I didn't want to touch it too much. So I used the utility plugin here to keep the bass in mono. So everything from 95 hertz and below would be kept in the middle. I added this EQ at 15 hertz, which is just like a little roll off to give the bass a little bit more punch. I cut the sides at 230. I basically just soloed the sides here on the lows until I felt like the lows were controlled, until the stereo image was pretty good. And then I used this exciter on the master to kind of give it some bite. I wouldn't use this exciter anymore. I don't like it. I think it's kind of harsh. But basically, I just added a lot of mid excitement so that the mids would come through on like small speakers. And I added a little bit of highs, just a tiny bit. And I guess this technically would be tube saturation. I don't know. I downloaded this. Well, yeah, it's just distortion. But yeah, on top of that, I added some stereo depth to the track here. I just boosted it a little bit on the master. And then I don't know what I did with this. I don't know what this is. I guess it's just a filter. Yeah, it's just a filter. I added it in the parts where things were kind of quiet. It's kind of like a washed out effect. And then I used my limiter here. I didn't do too much limiting, just 3 dB of gain, and I think it's only taking out yeah. So in this big section, it's taking out like 5 dB. Short term got it up there, 8 but ultimately ended up being around 8. Pretty nice at this time. I typically wasn't mastering too loud when this first track came out, but since this I've been pushing my masters and my mix is a little bit harder. But the attack is super slow. The release is also pretty slow. Yeah, not a lot of look ahead. And then I dithered it. I don't use this anymore, dithering. I don't really do that. Because I'm not downsampling my mixes anymore. But I did this for some reason. I think I read somewhere that you should be using dithering, so I just Ninja Zero. Hello. We're just talking some music production right now. But yeah, I did watching ads. Oh no. I'm sorry. Oh, I also wanted to apologize for not having my camera plugged in. My webcam has been giving me issues for like months. And every time I try to use it, it ends up crashing my computer. Like blue screen crash. So I haven't used it. I'm planning on ordering a new webcam this weekend, and I got some other cool stuff that I also will be purchasing to help me in my endeavors. But yeah, that's the reason why my webcam isn't plugged in. But yeah, just a simple limiter here. I like exporting my masters at -1 dB just in case. I know a lot of people will export their masters at -0.1, and some people -0.3 to account for like digital distortion stuff like that during conversions. But I don't care that much, so I just do one whole dB, and then that's it. That was the master. I didn't really do too much on the master. A lot of the work was done in the mix, and I have this spectrum analyzer, and as you can kind of see, like, it's pretty nice. Um, and this is old for me, so I mean, clearly here there's a pretty big buildup. I would have done a little bit more multiband compression here, and I probably would have lifted some of this in here. But the low end's pretty nice. I probably would have did something here to fix this. I would have notched out some of these. But all in all, like, I'm pretty content with how it came out, considering the situation. It was my first time making drum and bass. First time really working on any of this stuff, engineering wise, mixing and production. So yeah, all in all, that was the breakdown of my track Hysteria. It's 1 year old today. If you have a chance, go listen to it. If you're into drum and bass, check out some more drum and bass. I make some more drum and bass. You could check out some of my newer releases. I have some more drum and bass tracks in reserve, just waiting. They're waiting on some things before I can officially put them out. But yeah, thanks for stopping by to check out the breakdown.